picture this. You're on vacation,
Yeah.
right? You're in beautiful West Palm Beach, Florida, soaking up the sun, and suddenly you become a witness to a brutal murder.
Oh, wow.
That's what happened to one couple. They found themselves right in the middle of a tragic case. It really shows you how fast a seemingly small altercation can turn deadly.
Yeah, for sure.
So today we're doing a deep dive into the murder of Jamal Drummond.
Okay.
He was a young father who shot outside of a Holiday Inn.
Oh, geez.
And we're going to be looking at excerpts from the Anatomy Murder podcast.
Okay.
We'll hear from the detective who led the investigation and try to piece together everything.
Yeah.
Witness testimony, surveillance footage, even the suspect's own words.
I'm intrigued already.
Oh, yeah. It's a wild case.
Yeah.
What really gets me about this case is the location.
Oh, really?
Yeah, West Palm Beach. It's known for this luxurious lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
But it also has a darker side with really high crime rates.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a stark reminder that these problems, they can exist together, even those picture-perfect places.
Yeah. Makes you think.
Right. And in this complex environment, that's where we meet Jamal Drummond. People described him as a really kind, family-oriented man.
Yeah.
It's just heartbreaking that his life was cut short.
Yeah. It's awful.
So on the night of the murder, it all started with a frantic 911 call
Oh, wow.
from a couple who were on vacation at that same Holiday Inn.
Okay.
And get this, they were off-duty corrections officers.
No way.
Yeah. They witnessed the whole thing firsthand.
That must have been terrifying, being on vacation and suddenly you're thrust into a situation like that.
Absolutely. I can't even imagine.
So what happened when the police got there? What did they find?
Well, when the officers arrived,
Okay.
they found Jamal Drummond dead at the scene. He had a gunshot wound to the face.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and witnesses started giving their accounts of what happened. Jamal's former girlfriend and a friend were at the hotel, and they described a really weird encounter.
What do you mean?
They met this man who was frantically looking for a young woman.
Oh.
Yeah, and he was showing people a picture on his phone, almost like desperately searching for her.
Wow.
And this guy, who was later identified as Claudio Ivan Semioya, had a tense exchange with Jamal just moments before the shooting.
Okay, so the investigators had a potential suspect. Then what? What challenges did they run into?
Well, initially there were some big obstacles.
Like what?
The hotel didn't have any exterior surveillance footage,
Oh, no.
and witnesses could only give them a partial license plate for the suspect's car.
Really?
Yeah, it was a small, gray Toyota.
That's not a lot to go on.
It was like solving a puzzle with most of the pieces missing.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So how did they even begin to connect those little bits of information they had?
Technology played a huge role.
Oh, really? In what way?
They used something called geofencing.
Geofencing? What is that?
It analyzes cell phone data in a specific area. So basically, they create a virtual boundary and then track any devices that enter or leave that zone.
Ah, I see. That's pretty clever.
Right. It's becoming a really important tool for investigators.
Yeah, it makes sense. Kind of like a digital dragnet.
Exactly. And through geofencing, they found the Uber driver who had driven Semioya to and from the crime scene that night.
Whoa, wait. So the Uber driver had no idea they were driving a potential murderer.
Right. Talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Jeez. So what did they get from the driver?
The driver described Semioya's behavior during the ride. And crucially, the driver gave them his phone records. And that allowed investigators to start putting the pieces together.
Oh, so they were starting to get somewhere.
Yeah, they were. But how did they go from just a phone number to actually knowing who their suspect was, like putting a name and a face to him?
That's a good question.
Well, they cross-referenced that number with police databases.
Okay.
And they found that Semioya had a history of calling the police for help.
Interesting.
His previous booking photos matched images from a gas station surveillance camera
Oh, wow.
near the crime scene.
So they had their man. Did they go arrest him?
They did. And when they interviewed Semioya, something was really strange.
What was it?
He never asked why they were arresting him.
Oh, really?
Not once. It's almost like he knew.
Wow, that's kind of creepy.
It was a red flag for the investigators. And they used a clever tactic during the interview. They showed him that gas station photo.
Okay, yeah.
They just said, "We all know who this is, right?"
Did he say anything?
He did. He confirmed that it was him, which put him right at the scene.
Oh, so he basically admitted it?
He tried to backtrack later, but the damage was already done.
Wow, that's some good police work. But even with Semioya identified, there was still a big piece missing.
What was that?
The murder weapon.
Oh, right. How did they find that?
This is where those recorded jailhouse calls come in.
Okay.
Semioya made a huge mistake while talking to his girlfriend, Gail.
What did he say?
He told her that she had the gun. He incriminated himself on a recorded line.
It's unbelievable how often that happens. People just don't realize how much they're being watched.
You'd think they'd be more careful.
You'd think so. But those calls weren't just about the gun. They actually gave investigators insight into Semioya and Gail's relationship.
Really? What was it like?
It was volatile. Their conversations went from loving to angry really quickly.
Oh, wow.
There were even hints of possible abuse and control.
That's concerning. So what did the police do with this new info about the gun?
They went to Gail,
Ah.
and she just handed over Semioya's phone without any resistance.
Really? That's surprising. Why would she cooperate if she was involved with him?
It seems like she was trying to distance herself from Semioya and everything he did. Maybe out of fear.
Maybe. Or maybe she wanted to get away from that relationship.
Could be. Whatever her reason was. The contents of that phone were a goldmine.
Okay, I gotta know. What did they find on the phone?
Photos of Semioya posing with a 9mm handgun.
Okay.
The same caliber as the murder weapon,
Huh?
ammunition that matched the shell casings from the scene,
Oh, wow.
and even a text message where he was bragging to Gail about his wanted poster.
He was bragging.
Yeah, he was...
It sounds like he was practically handing the prosecution a conviction on a silver platter.
Right. You'd think they had an airtight case.
So what happened? What could possibly go wrong at that point?
There's a twist.
Really? What is it?
There was a procedural error when they were handling the evidence,
I don't know.
and because of that error, the phone was deemed inadmissible in court.
You're kidding.
Nope. Detective Paul, the lead investigator, even admitted to the mistake.
Oh, man. That's a huge blow. To lose such crucial evidence like that.
It was devastating for the prosecution. So what happened next? Could they still go ahead with the case without the phone?
Well, the first trial ended in a mistrial.
Mistrial. Why?
The jury was hung.
What does that even mean?
It means they couldn't agree on a verdict. Some jurors were speculating about other motives.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, they were influenced more by what they see on TV than the actual evidence presented.
Are you serious?
It's a harsh reality that even in court, personal biases can totally cloud judgment. But this wasn't the end for Jamal's family. The prosecution wanted justice. They offered Semioya a plea deal.
What kind of deal?
15 years for manslaughter.
So he had a chance to avoid a life sentence. Did he take it?
Nope. He rejected the deal.
He gambled on a not guilty verdict. Seriously.
Yeah, it was a risky move. But then, right before the second trial started, there was another twist.
Another one?
Gail changed her story.
Wait, Gail. The girlfriend.
Yeah. She recanted all her previous statements.
Wow, why would she do that?
She claimed that the police had coerced her.
Oh my gosh. That's a huge turn of events. So was she still involved with Semioya? Or was she just scared to testify?
It's hard to say for sure.
That's crazy. It just goes to show you how unpredictable witnesses can be.
Yeah.
And how complicated these relationships can get, especially in a case like this.
Definitely. But despite this setback and the missing phone evidence, the prosecution was determined to see this through.
So did they manage to get a conviction for Jamal's murder in the second trial?
Well, we're going to have to dive back into the courtroom to find out the final verdict.
We'll uncover it all in part 2 of our deep dive.
That second trial really put the prosecution to the test.
Right.
They had to adapt. You know, they had to overcome all these unexpected challenges, like the missing phone evidence and then Gail changing her story.
Yeah, it seems like the odds were totally against them. So how did they rebuild their case? How did they convince the jury?
They had to go back to basics.
What do you mean?
Well, they focused on the other evidence, the witness statements from the night of the murder,
Right.
the Uber driver's account of Semioya's behavior.
So back to square one, basically.
Exactly. They also pointed out the problems with Gail's new story.
Like what? What didn't add up?
Well, there were details that just didn't match the physical evidence.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So they were trying to show the jury that Gail's first story, the one where she cooperated with the police,
Yeah.
that was the more reliable one,
Exactly. They argued that she was just trying to protect Semioya.
out of fear.
Maybe. Or maybe because she still had feelings for him.
Right. So even without the phone, they were still building a case, showing Semioya's motive, his actions, his connection to the crime.
Right. But the defense had their own strategy.
What was that?
They tried to suggest other possibilities.
Like what?
They said maybe Jamal's death was a case of mistaken identity or a drug deal gone wrong.
But Jamal and Semioya didn't even know each other, right?
That's what they were banking on.
So basically, they were just trying to create doubt.
Exactly. Enough doubt to make the jury question everything.
Wow. It all came down to who the jury believed.
Right. In the end, it was their decision.
And what did they decide?
After a lot of deliberation, they found Claudio Ivan Semioya guilty.
Wow.
Guilty of first-degree murder.
Finally, justice for Jamal. That must have been such a relief for his family.
Absolutely. Especially after everything they went through, the mistrial, Gail changing her story. It was a long road.
It was. But they got there in the end.
They did. Semioya was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
Wow. So he'll be spending the rest of his life behind bars.
Yep.
And it's a fitting punishment for what he did.
Definitely. But this case is about more than just the legal outcome.
Right.
There are bigger lessons here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
About human behavior, the consequences of jealousy and rage.
Exactly, Jamal's death. It's a terrible example of how easily jealousy can lead to violence.
Especially in a toxic relationship, like the one Semioya and Gail had.
Right. He was possessive, he felt entitled to her, and it ended up costing an innocent man his life.
It's a scary reminder that this kind of thing can happen anywhere, even to people who aren't directly involved.
It is.
Yeah.
Are there any other insights we can take away from this case, maybe about technology and investigations, or the importance of witnesses?
Those are great questions, and we'll delve deeper into those themes and explore the broader implications of this case in the final part of our deep dive. We've looked at all the evidence, we've been through the drama of the courtroom, and we've heard about the terrible impact of this crime. But there's more to uncover.
Right. Yeah, definitely. We need to look at the bigger picture. What can we learn from this case? Especially about technology and investigations, and the whole issue of witness testimony.
Absolutely. The Jamal Drummond case, it's a perfect example of how technology can be both a powerful tool and a potential problem for law enforcement.
Right.
Like, you have geofencing, which was key in finding Semioya and connecting him to the crime scene, but then a simple mistake with the phone evidence almost ruined the whole case.
It's a tough balance.
Yeah.
Using these powerful tools the right way, making sure everything's ethical.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's the whole thing with witnesses, Gail changing her story. It shows us that you can never really predict what a witness will do.
It really makes you think. Nothing is ever black and white.
Right. Witness testimony, it's influenced by so many things, personal relationships, fear, even the need to protect themselves. It's complicated.
Yeah, it is. And it reminds us that people's actions aren't always straightforward.
Exactly.
And finding justice, it's not always a clear path.
Nope. There are always twists and turns.
But this case also makes us think about some uncomfortable things about our society. We can't ignore the part that toxic masculinity and possessiveness played in all of this.
Absolutely. Semioya's jealousy and rage, and that sense of control over Gail, it was a dangerous combination.
It led to a terrible outcome. And it shows us how important it is to address these issues as a society.
It makes you wonder, how can we build healthier relationships? How can we make sure partners respect each other? How can we stop things from escalating to violence?
Those are big questions. And it's a discussion we need to have everywhere, not just in the legal system, but in our families, our communities, our whole society.
You're right on the money. The Jamal Drummond case. It's a tragedy on so many levels, and it shows that these problems, they're not just something we see on the news. They're happening all around us.
It's a wake-up call. We need to be more aware of those warning signs of toxic relationships. We need to step in when we can, and we need to create a world where violence is never the answer.
You've summed it up perfectly. This has been a tough but really important deep dive.
It has. It's shown us just how complex criminal investigations can be, how complicated people are, and how much we still need to do to change things for the better.
Even in the face of all this darkness, there are people fighting for justice. And we all have a part to play in building a safer world, a world that's fair for everyone.
That's a powerful message. And if this deep dive has made you think, maybe share it with a friend. Talk about it. It's a chance to look at the world around us and maybe even spark some positive change.
Definitely.
And for more deep dives into fascinating stories, make sure you subscribe to The Deep Dive.
We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Another journey into a captivating story.
Until then, stay curious and keep those conversations going.